I have a couple of pieces of very cool vintage broadcast equipment to show you today. This is a matching pair of Sony HR Trinitron PVM-8045Q professional video monitors. And these were made in 1999. We just recently retired these from the TV station. Replaced them with a couple of modern LCD monitors because we need something high definition capable. We haven't used these in a long time anyway. They were installed but never used. They weren't actually hooked up to anything for quite a long time, but he said I could keep these. I'm going to keep one for myself and sell the other one. I've been in talks with someone for a very long time to trade one of these for a 5-inch Sony PVM. These are 8-inch units, but it's been quite a while and he hasn't gotten back to me yet, so I don't know what the status is there. But I was going to trade one of these for one of those and then sell the other one of these, or if that falls through, I'll just sell one of these outright and keep the other one. And I think that was a very generous thing to allow me to do, because these are some very cool monitors. So these were sold as commercial equipment, not meant for the consumer market, and these are broadcast quality monitors. The HR in HR Trinitron means high resolution. These have a special high resolution version of an 8-inch Trinitron tube and the higher quality circuitry to go with it. These are capable of resolving 600 lines of resolution, which is insane for a CRT of this size. As a comparison, my Funai built Philips 9-inch TV VCR there, that might be able to resolve 200 or 250 lines. But these can resolve 600 vertical lines of video. They have a very, very fine, well, on a shadow mask CRT you'd call it dot pitch, but a Trinitron has vertical phosphor lines, but it's a much higher resolution than a standard Trinitron tube. In official terms, they call these as having 450 TV lines of resolution. TV lines, it's kind of weird, but TV lines is defined as the number of vertical lines like this, but only as far as the height of the tube. Of course, it's not perfectly square, it's a little bit wider than it is tall. So TV lines is defined as the number of vertical lines up to the height of the tube. So actually right about here is 450 lines, and then you can do math and get the rest, which adds up to 600 lines in total. So you could almost resolve a VGA resolution computer image on these monitors, which is very, very impressive. So these were installed, these were bought and installed as a matching pair back in 1999. The serial numbers on these two units are only a few increments apart, but they are two separate machines. I did take these home with the bracket that they both install in to keep them together, a rack mount bracket. I've got that over there somewhere. So let's take a look at what they got here. So what makes these a professional video monitor? Well, first of all, the biggest thing is they have multiple inputs on them, and they are all commercial grade inputs. So you've got composite, and it's in the form of a BNC connector. You've got S-video, that was common on later CRT TVs in the consumer market, but definitely not earlier ones. And you can loop through too, so you've got composite in and S-video in, but then you've also got composite out and S-video out. So you can daisy chain stuff in the video chain together if you want, which is nice. These do have built-in speakers, so they've got an audio in and out. You'll notice the little resistor symbol on the line and S-video out. That just means they auto-terminate, so you don't have to put a terminator in those sockets if you don't have anything plugged into them. Some commercial video equipment you do have to terminate video outputs, or it can screw stuff up. And notice they're grouped as line A and line B. Only line A has an S-video. So you could actually have two video sources plugged into this and switch between them using a switch on the front panel, I'll show that later. And then these have component input. You can do either RGB or YRB. Very, very nice. And of course they have another audio input to match. So there's actually 3 inputs on this. You can do line A or line B, but then there's a separate switch to go between line A or B or the component. So yeah, component input, really serious stuff. And of course, that's how you get a super high quality, super high resolution image on this. These professional video monitors, not so much smaller ones like this, but the bigger ones, the 14-inch and 20-inch ones, they are worth a ton of money today. And the reason is because vintage video game enthusiasts love the high resolution image on these monitors, and they'll modify their video game consoles to get component output and plug it into one of these, and the video game looks freaking amazing. Way better than you'd ever get through the RF input or composite input of your vintage video game console on a standard television. And there's a market for components that you can buy and solder into your Super Nintendo or your NES or your Sega Genesis to get the RGB output. And it's quite a lot of money that can go into a hobby like that. So yeah, these are very sought after because of their component input and the high resolution tube. Another market for these today is people who just love CRT televisions, particularly because later models of Sony PVMs are high definition capable. So you've heard of the Sony Wega Trinitron, the high definition Trinitron TVs that Sony made in the 2000s. They weighed about 500 pounds, and you know, they could output a 1080i picture on a CRT. Very, very cool, but very unwieldy. Well, Sony probably sold more high-definition PVMs than high-definition consumer Trinitron television sets. The later generation Sony PVMs that could resolve 720p or 1080i video, they're actually quite common to buy. You'll pay a lot of money for them on eBay and such, but it's quite easy to get one of them if you have enough money. We have one at the station. It's a 14-inch unit, and it can resolve a 1080i picture, and it's super awesome, and the picture on it is freaking amazing. And I've only ever seen that set with a composite signal input into it. Station manager didn't even know it was high definition capable until I told him. So maybe someday we'll be able to pipe a high definition signal into that, and that'll be freaking amazing to see what that looks like. So these aren't high definition capable, but they'll output pretty much the best picture that you'll ever see on a standard definition television set, that's for sure. I didn't cover everything on the back. We've got a remote jack, so you can control the set remotely, and you can put an external sync source in if you want, very important for the broadcast industry. Standard IEC power connector. You also get the standard 4-pin 12-volt power connector, which is very nice. And something really cool, you can put a battery in one of these. 2 batteries, actually. This one's missing the battery cover, but I believe the battery actually clicks into place, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, you can stick a couple of 12-volt batteries in this. 12-volt NiCad batteries. I believe the part number was the Sony NP1B. But yeah, you could power these 8-inch sets with a built-in battery or 2 if you wanted to. That's really, really cool. There's the sticker on that. Made in Japan, of course. So on the front panel, first of all, this little white plastic square up here is actually a red LED light. It's a tally light, and it comes on through the remote jack. If you had an accessory hooked up to this through the remote jack, it could turn that tally light on and off as a way to show you, like, in a broadcast environment. Like, I've seen a picture of the television station from like 10-15 years ago when there was like 8 of these PVMs, where we now have one big like 60-70 inch LCD TV that shows all the different inputs and It's what we use to do our video switching. Well, back before that, there was just PVMs for all the inputs and outputs, and you would rely on them when you were running a show or taping a show. And so these tally lights would come on to show you which camera or video source or whatever was currently being broadcast or taped. So that's how those work. And I've actually looked it up and found the pinout for the remote jack, so you can actually just short a couple of these pins together to turn on the light, and I'll show you that later. There's your power switch, volume control. The speaker is for monitor purposes only. It doesn't get very loud, nor is it high fidelity. Contrast, your chroma phase, which in layman's terms we call tint. That's an NTSC thing. You guys with the PAL television system don't get this because PAL is superior to NTSC. There's your chroma level. On a consumer set, this would be called your color saturation control. Your brightness and your aperture, which on a consumer set would be called your sharpness control. There's potentiometers right here to adjust your red, green, and blue bias and gain. We have a switch to go between the A or B inputs, or when you're in component mode, you can switch between RGB or YRB. That goes between the A and B inputs and the RGB input. Internal or external sync. You have a degauss switch. You can degauss the set whenever you want. Very nice. Oh yeah, even though these aren't high definition, they actually have a 16:9 mode, which is pretty cool. Horizontal vertical delay. This is actually a really useful feature, especially when you're working with videotape. I'll show that later. You can force underscan if you want. That basically shrinks the image on the set so you can see the outer boundaries that normally wouldn't be shown on a normal TV set. And then blue only. This basically forces a monochrome output. It only shows the blue component of the video signal. And this is useful for setting focusing, if you're focusing a camera, if you're using this as a camera monitor. And it's useful for setting tracking on a VCR, because you're able to see just the luminance portion of the videotape signal, and so that makes it easier to set the tracking just perfect. You got these metal bumpers on here to protect the set if you're moving it around, or if it's up against the wall, protect the switches or the face from getting broken. So let me find a power cord and plug one of these in, and I'll get a VCR as our source. Or actually, you know what I'll do? I don't have anything with a component output. Well, I do, but I don't have enough BNC to RCA connectors to hook it up. But I can hook up something with an S-video output, and that's my Super VHS camcorder, my Panasonic AG456. I haven't had that running in quite a while. Still don't know how it hasn't died of bad capacitors, so I say let's pull that out, make sure that it hasn't died of bad capacitors yet, and we'll hook it up and see what that looks like on this monitor. Alright, the monitor's plugged in. Old Faithful is plugged into the monitor through S-video. Let's turn the monitor on. Okay, let's turn the camera on. Hey, alright. There it is, and I know this won't translate well onto YouTube, but I can already see what a very sharp image that this monitor produces. I tell you what. So I'll show you the underscan. That's the underscan, so you can see the outer boundary of the image. So normally you wouldn't see the bottom part of this box label, but with underscan we can see it all of a sudden. So the blue only, get to your black and white image. As I said, this really helps with either focusing something or setting the tracking on a VCR. Because as you can see, if I turn blue only off, well, it's hard to tell on camera, but the image looks super smooth, super sharp. And when I put on blue only, it actually gets really, really grainy, because it shows the imperfections of the video signal. So that's how that works. Brightness, chroma, which is your color saturation, as I said before. Chroma phase, which is your tint, contrast. And your aperture, which sharpens the image or makes it a lot softer. Of course, you're still not going to be able to see this on camera, but that's okay. Now, let me put a tape in the camcorder. Get out my pretend SVHS tape. So now we're playing a tape. Now if I do the underscan, or actually, let me do the horizontal, vertical. Actually, let me stop playing the tape. So we go back to the camera image, and I'll do horizontal, vertical delay. And what you can now see are the vertical blanking interval and the horizontal blanking interval of the camera. And this tells you a lot about the quality of a video signal, especially when you're playing back from a VCR. And I'll show you that in a moment, but as you can see, this is what a perfect vertical and horizontal blanking interval looks like. So now if I start playing the tape, look at this. So now we're looking at the horizontal and vertical blanking interval of the tape, and as you can see, in the horizontal blanking interval, it's not perfect. You can see that this black bar is not perfectly straight. In the middle there, it gets all screwy. And look at this in the vertical blanking interval. See these white dots doing a little jig? That's your time code information. This is what the VCR is using to count the time code. And perhaps even the date and time are stored in there too, I'm not sure. So where being able to see the horizontal blanking interval is really important is in particular with U-matic VCRs. Because you know how U-matic VCRs, they have that skew control on them? Well, you look at this to set that skew control. That skew control controls, normally, skew control on a U-matic machine, if the skew is off, the top of the video will be slanted. That's what they mean by skew. But you can also set it by how good this little part looks in the horizontal blanking interval. If I turn the skew control one way, it slants one way. If I turn it to the other extreme, it slants the other way. And you can set the skew control to get it just perfect. VCRs and monitors alike have a pretty good tolerance for how skewed this can get, but if it gets far enough, they will lose sync. So, what I'll show now is a video I took for Twitter, but I'll include it in this video, showing I had one of these monitors hooked up to the U-matic machine, and I showed how I can use the horizontal vertical delay to properly set the skew control on the U-matic machine for playback. I'm continuing to learn new tricks here. I have the U-matic machine going, and I've learned that if I set my monitor, if I turn the horizontal vertical delay on, so you can see the horizontal blanking interval and the vertical blanking interval, you'll notice that this part of the horizontal blanking interval, it's not solid all the way through. When it gets here, it's sort of jagged. And you can actually correct that with the skew control on the VCR. This mechanical control that adjusts the tape tension. So if I adjust that skew control, you can see I just fix that. And now it lines up, not perfectly. I gotta sort of fine tune it. But a lot better than it was. So if I play with the control, See that? So that is what your skew control is for. You would use it in conjunction with a monitor that can show the horizontal blanking interval. And you can use the skew control to sort of correct it so it's as straight as possible. Get you the best possible playback quality. Very cool. And actually notice this, if I pick up the camcorder and start jiggling it around, you can see how that skew works. In videotape, this is a function of the tape tension. So if the tape tension is too high or too low, it'll cause this to skew one way or the other. So when I jiggle the camera around, I'm causing the tape to ever so slightly tighten or loosen. I've got the Betacam SX VCR hooked up to the set, only through composite, but there you can see what a bright and crisp image it has. And now I'll show you again. If I go into the blue only mode, this is what it looks like. And you can also use this to set what in the business we call the proc amp, the processing amplifier of the VCR, which is these controls right here. Your video level, your chroma level, your setup or black level, and your chroma phase. So if I go into blue only mode and I fiddle with the chroma phase, you can see how it switches the image there. So we know we've got the chroma phase perfect when it looks like black or white black, white black, white black. And I can see this bar is looking a little dim, so I'll adjust that some more. And there, that looks pretty good. And if I push the switch in to go back to automatic mode, I didn't see it change at all, so we got it right on. Now unfortunately, these aren't SMPTE bars. If they were, we could use what would normally be the bottom part of the SMPTE bars to set our video level. But these are just color bars, so we don't have the facilities to do that. Now, as for this tally light on the front, so how you turn that on is through the remote jack. In the middle row of pins, you short the one on the left to the one on the right. Basically, one of those pins is ground and the other one is tally light on or off. Just like so. And turn it back around, power it on, and we have a nice red light. So, not very useful in a non-broadcast environment, but something interesting nonetheless. I think that's about all there is to show of the Sony HR Trinitron model PVM-8045Q professional video monitor from 1999. What a very nice pair of vintage video monitors, super crisp screen. Really beautiful, very useful with the multiple input formats and the horizontal vertical delay. The Rogers one is the one I'll be keeping here because it has both the battery covers intact. And this has been aiding me in the U-matic videotape transfer because I can use it to set the skew. When SMPTE bars come up on the tape, I can use that as an opportunity to set the proc amp on the time-based corrector and video processor that I'm using. And it's awesome and very useful and very cool. And like I said, I'm hoping to trade the other one for a 5-inch unit, but I'm not sure if that's going to fall through or not. But anyhow, there you go. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. And I will see you in the next video.